Today we are actually going to spend in the kitchen preserving some of the harvest in a few unexpected ways. But first, I'm actually going to harvest all of my tomatoes. My tomatoes are not ripe, but I have had a pest move in and it's killed most of my tomatoes. I don't know if you can see in the background here. I'll actually insert some footage, but most of my tomatoes have died already. They've shriveled up. I initially thought that perhaps it's been very, very hot and very, very humid. I wondered if it was because of that, but I've actually since noticed that I do have, I don't know exactly what its name is, but when I looked online, it was the green vegetable bug, and it does seem to and I have seen a couple of them on my tomato plants, and I think they're making a mess of them. So there are a few things I'm going to harvest today. One of the main things being the green tomatoes. I've also got some fennel that I think I'll harvest because it's just getting too hot for them. There's a couple of cabbages, very, very small cabbages about this big, that I'm going to harvest. And I think that's it. So let's quickly do that because it's also starting to rain. And then a bit later on today, I'm going to take you into my kitchen. So this bed has actually been looking really good when everything else has been dying. But it was actually on these plants where I saw the green vegetable bug. They just start withering away. Apparently the green vegetable bug sucks the sap out of the plant, which then just means it doesn't get any water or nutrients to the plant, and they just start to shrivel up. So I imagine it won't be long until it moves into all of these beautiful plants, and so unfortunately I'm just going to harvest. It's such a shame because look how many tomatoes are on these plants. They're so prolific. I've also decided that I'm actually going to harvest some of these leeks. I may plant the roots again, but I just think these ones are getting reasonably big, and I might just get them out of the ground before something chomps them or it gets too hot. And this one's actually, that's escape, so they might end up flowering. I've got my tomatoes, I've got my fennel, got my 2 cabbages. I've already taken down my leeks. I harvested a few of my leeks. I probably won't be using any of them today, but I will just be getting them into the freezer in a form where it's really easy to use them. So I will see you a little later today, showing you what I do with all of this. Hello, here we are in my kitchen. Okay, so we've got a lot going on here, as you can see. I have the tomatoes that we picked this morning. I also have the leek, plus some extra. So after I stopped filming, I actually harvested a whole lot more. So I have some leek, and I have some, they weren't a spring onion. I think they were some type of white, like a white spring onion or a white globe onion, not a proper onion. They were kind of like a cross between a spring onion and a proper onion. So I've got a whole lot of those that I'm going to process. So I'm just going to chop those and put them into the freezer. If you saw my video last week, you saw me harvest a whole lot of cucumbers. I have a stack of cucumbers here that I'm going to do a couple of different things with. And then there's the fennel that I also harvested this morning, plus some extras that I'm going to see if there's anything that I can salvage from them. They've been in the fridge for, I don't know, a few days. They obviously don't do well in the fridge, so we'll just have to see how we go with those. Now, what I'm going to do with these green tomatoes is make passata, and I know that sounds crazy. It was an experiment that I did at the end of winter. I just thought I'd try it and see how it went. And we did have to modify the recipe significantly. We had to add a reasonable amount of brown sugar and a reasonable amount of balsamic vinegar. But it actually worked really well. You need a strong meat. So we used pork mince and used it as like a pasta sauce. And it was actually really, really good. And so when I said that I was going to do this, pickle these tomatoes, and I was actually going to pickle them. I was going to do a green pickled tomato recipe. My husband actually requested that we do the passata again because he really enjoyed it too. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to start that process first, and then we're going to move on to some of this other good stuff going here. So, okay, so I'm just going to cut these in half, and I'm going to, particularly any that are stung, that I can see that are stung by fruit fly, I'm just going to check. You can see with this one I've discarded, that you can kind of see where they've burrowed in. So we're just going to check. A lot of them are actually pretty good, so I shouldn't need to throw out too many, hopefully. The fruit fly situation is one of the reasons why it is so good to grow things in winter here, because you just do not get the pest pressure that you do in summer, and including the fruit fly. So you get a little bit, but not nearly as much. I find it such a shame that I have to harvest these so early. Although we make them into something that we'll still use, it's still really disappointing that we didn't get a good harvest of tomatoes. I haven't, see, there's another one that's got something funky going on in it. Tomatoes are a real challenge for me in my climate because it's really just a bit cool in winter, but in summer the fruit fly and all the other pests, and because I don't really want to spray it with anything, even the organic stuff, I really struggle with growing tomatoes. I really haven't worked out how to grow them. I have a naturalised cherry tomato that comes up in my garden fairly regularly, and it's a really small, like teeny tiny, like that big, but it's got a thicker skin, but it's actually really sweet. And I'm starting to get to the point where save the seeds from that and then don't bother with tomatoes, just buy them and make my own passata and things like that, but just buy them in, because it's just not it just doesn't seem very doable. But I'll probably keep experimenting. So we have had quite the unfortunate occurrence in the kitchen. I got most of the way through everything and thought I would check to see how the sound was coming, and realised that somehow the Bluetooth between my phone and the microphone had somehow switched over to the speaker, which was out in the workshop with my husband and my son. So there was no sound. So instead of just doing a whole lot of voiceover, which I think would be dreadfully boring, I'm just going to catch you up as to where I'm at. So we got up to, I had chopped up the green onions. We now have, how hot is that? Still pretty hot, please hold. So here we have the tomatoes. Okay, so I put in, as well as the green tomatoes, I put in garlic, a herb bundle, and that's it. I boiled it on the stove for about 30 minutes, probably a bit longer. The next step with this is that I will put it through the blender and then put it through my sieve. I don't have a muley or anything like that, so that's the next step for that. After I have then sieved it and gotten all the skins and seeds out, I will then put in the sugar and the balsamic vinegar in order to sweeten that up. So next, I collected the seeds from the really big cucumber that I had harvested previously, and I combined that with some other cucumbers, and that is going to be in a soy pickle, a soy-based, Japanese-inspired pickle. So that's been salted and has just been sitting waiting. Next is some other cucumbers where I have had that sitting in. So that's a normal soy sauce, a sticky soy sauce, and some fish sauce. And it's just been sitting in that marinade. I am then going to dehydrate these, and I'm going to put them onto the dehydrating, what are they called? Trays. And then I'm going to sprinkle sesame seeds over the top. I don't know whether the sesame seeds will stick or not, but we're going to give it a go. So that's those two things. Then the fennel, let me show you what's going on there. So the fennel, I was able to salvage quite a bit of it, and it's now in, this is basically water, some lemon juice, some garlic, and that's pretty much it. It's going to be here for about 30 minutes. And then it will go into a jar with oil on top of it. So that's where that's at. I think I've now caught you up with everything. Okay, so this, you won't be able to see any of this because it's all going to be backwards, but the Food Savers A to Z, so this is by a couple of Australian ladies who, I just find this the most amazing book. They are really good at giving substitutes for particular ingredients, or if you've got half a cucumber versus have you got a lot of cucumbers, these are some things that you can do with it. They're very chilled out, they're very relaxed about everything, and they make you feel like you can cope with anything, and that you don't have to have all of the things in a recipe in order to make something delicious. So highly recommend. But, so this is where we're getting the Japanese style soy pickled cucumber from. So that's what we're going to concentrate on now. Okay, so theirs is for only 1 or 2 cucumbers. So I'm actually going to double their recipe. So I'm making, so half a cup of soy. I'm actually going to add a little bit of the sweet because I didn't quite have enough. That should do. Then 4 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. 4. And then sugar. Now they've said like superfine caster, but I'm just using what I have. So let me check how much I need. Right, I need 2 tablespoons. Okay. Right, so then I need to actually turn that burner on. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that to, all we're trying to do is dissolve the sugar. Okay, so I have patted these dry with a tea towel, and now I'm just going to put them into the jar. I actually don't know whether I'm going to have enough of the liquid, but the recipe assures me that they will release more water. So hopefully
they will release more water and there will be enough liquid. We will see. The other thing that will go in is just a little bit of sesame oil, but I think it actually goes into the jar. That has fit perfectly. I didn't realize that you couldn't see it. So there is my jar of cucumbers. I'm just putting in some sesame oil. Okay, so the sugar has dissolved in the soy mixture. I just need it to cool down a little bit. I think now we'll put the fennel into its jar and finish it off, and then we're going to start wrapping things up. This actually smells amazing. I'm just going to put the fennel in first. We have these in there. I have too big a jar, but we're going to make it work. So I'm going to use my funnel and to pour that in. So I'm just going to put this to one side to let it cool. And if it needs more oil, I'll put it in, but we'll just see what it's like once it's cool. Okay, so the fennel is done. Now, I'm going to let that soy cool even more. So we will start putting the dehydrated cucumbers onto the dehydrated trays. So I know that this is going to make a mess, but it will be okay. I would rather do that than put soy all over one of my tea towels. So I'm just going to put these onto the tray. Now, the dehydration, I find a funny thing in my climate. I have a very humid climate, and we don't generally have an air-conditioned house. We have it on today because it's a really hot day and because I wanted to spend quite a bit of time in the kitchen, but we don't tend to have it on. And so I find that the prescribed temperature in recipes doesn't do it. It doesn't matter how long you leave it for. You can leave it there for 2 days and it just never dries enough. So what I've started doing is actually increasing it by about 10 degrees. And it seems like a lot, but it's the only way I've found that it actually, they actually get to the point where they're supposed to be at. You know, like these should snap. The last ones of these that I did it pretty much in the time allocated, 10 to 12 hours or whatever, but I had to do it at 10 degrees higher because there's such a lot of humidity here that, it just needs that extra temperature to dry it out properly. If any of you come from really humid climates and you have further feedback on that or what you do in order to dehydrate things, I'd love to hear it because it is a bit of a challenge. A lot of the stuff that I find is from, the recipes I find online are from not humid areas, the sorts of areas that have snow and, have proper winters and things like that. So if any of you do come from a climate similar to mine, I'd love to know what you do as far as dehydration of vegetables. I'm just going to sprinkle these sesame seeds, and I don't even know whether they're going to stick, but I figure we're just going to give it a try. If it doesn't work, doesn't matter, but we're going to give it a go. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. A few too many there. It's okay, I'll move this. Okay. Just keeping them one under the other just to catch some of these sesame seeds rather than wasting so many. Okay, now So the recipe says to put these in the dehydrator at 52 degrees for 10 to 12 hours. I will be putting it in at 60 degrees. It says 52 degrees because it's an American book and so it's in Fahrenheit. But I'm going to make it 60 degrees and we'll see how that goes. So here are our cucumbers with the little bit of sesame oil. A funnel. I hope this is enough. It is going to be enough. Oh, nice. It's a perfect amount. Yay! Yay for the day. Okay. So I'm just going to put the lid on that. Turn the right lid. Okay. Okay. So there are our Japanese-inspired pickled cucumbers. I think I might have overestimated what I could get done in a day here today. So let's finish off our tomatoes and then see where we're at then. I've put a few dishes in the dishwasher, which is sort of clear the decks, but just to try and feel like I'm getting somewhere. So I've actually opted to use a stick blender just to try and save on some of those big, the blender that we have is kind of big and cumbersome. So just to try and save on some cumbersome dishes, I'm using the stick blender. So first of all, I need to find the herb bundle, pick it out, and then I'm going to blender it up. This is it here somewhere. Yep. Okay. And here's our little herb bundle. Put that in the, there's that leaf. Put that in the compost. Okay, and then we're going to, okay, so let's switch this over. And now I'm just going to sieve this to get the seeds and the skins out of this passata. I'm sure there's quicker ways to do this, but I've bought a lot of equipment over the last couple of years and I just have to, you have to space these things out. So this method works in the interim. So as I said previously, I have actually used this passata recipe to make proper passata, and it is it's quite plain. It's literally just got the garlic in it, which I quite like because it means that we can kind of use it for a range of things and just flavour it when we get there, or we can leave it because it's, really yummy. Just tomato and garlic. That is our base green tomato. I'm just going to give this a taste. It's really tough. It's really tough. It doesn't taste good at this point. That's actually not as bad as the last one. This time I made a point of throwing out some of the really, really little, not shiny, like really, really too unripe ones. And maybe that's why this actually doesn't taste as bad. It's still got that just in the back of your throat. So I'm going to put it back on the stove, and I'm going to start off with 1/4 cup of brown sugar and maybe 3 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, and then we're going to see what that's like then. Right, so I've got I couldn't find my 1/4 cup, so I'm putting in a loose packed 1/3 cup of brown sugar. I need to turn this on. Okay, put that on. No, I really don't think it needs that much. I'm just going to estimate 1/4 cup. And then, I'm just going to empty my balsamic vinegar bottle into, and if I need more, I'll make something up. Let's stir this in. This away. Okay, I'm going to give this a taste. I think that's all that needs. I have said this before today, but this does need a strong meat. So we have this with pork. Pork is quite strong tasting, and so it actually goes really well with this. I'm just going to let that kind of sit there. Okay, I have run out of time. It is getting that time of the day when the evening meal needs to be prepared and people want to come back inside and take over the house, which is fair enough. What we have done today, we have done the green tomato passata, which will be frozen. It will go into the freezer to be utilised at different times. Then we have the preserved fennel. Then we have the soy pickled cucumber. We have the dehydrated cucumber. What I still have to do, I have to chop up the onions. So all I do for that, I have these large bags. I make sure I name them because do you know how many unidentifiable packages are currently in the bottom of my freezer? Far too many. So I will be chopping those up, putting them into these bags, putting them in there for an hour, setting an alarm on my phone so I remember, and then going and like jiggling them up so that they stay loose and don't freeze into one great big lump, so that then I can just use them over time in different meals. So, my friends, thank you for bearing with me through this new type of format for me. Let me know what you think. Give me some tips, please, because this has taken me a really long time. I really think I was overzealous in what I thought I could get done. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I do appreciate it, and I hope you will come back again. Thanks so much. Bye now.